you'd like to know more about either organization, we've got two lovely reps with Lauren and Zoe here. And with that, I will let Martyn introduce himself.
And a round of applause. Thank you. Can you all hear me? Is that too loud? Is that okay? You can nod or put your hands over your ears if you're in pain. So welcome. Thank you for joining us on such a beautiful Edinburgh evening. Your presence is very much appreciated. I left London this morning and it was tipping down with rain. You'll be delighted to hear. So much better up here. We're going to look at financial communication, and I've kind of run with the mistakes theme. I've got kind of inspired by it. And we're looking at taking mistakes and turning them into mastery by using techniques from the world of acting. So we look at three big mistakes that people make, and they're mistakes that you won't make after tonight, hopefully. But I'll start by introducing myself, and as I say, I'm obsessed by mistakes, so I'm going to introduce my career in terms of those things. And normally people present their career as a series of logical steps where I did this and it was great, and so I went off there and it was the next thing I should do. That was amazing, I did a really good job, so I went off over there. And really most people's careers, in my opinion, are a series of mistakes and dead ends and blind alleys, and we learn from them and come out stronger. So my three mistakes correspond to my three stages of my career. The first stage being what I call my sensible stage, where I was the COO of an IT consultancy in the City of London working with financial services firms. And that was a mistake because I knew nothing about what we did, which might be limiting for the COO, except I was the one who spoke to clients and kept them happy. And if something went wrong, I was the person who could communicate on their level, which was a very useful skill to pick up. My second mistake was deciding I'd like to leave this very well-paid job and go and be an actor and go to drama school. And my parents certainly told me it was a mistake. And I trained and then could have gone back to my old job, and my old boss said, "Are you coming back?" I said, "No." He said, "Why not?" I said, "I'm going to be a professional actor." He said, "You'll never get work. 90% of actors never get work." I said, "I've got work." I'd got a role. He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I've got the part of Ernie the Elf in a pantomime." So mistake number two. And what I started to do while I was acting, because actors do rest from time to time, as you can imagine, I started to work with my old colleagues, helping them with pictures, presentations, standing on a stage like this, using some of the techniques from my business background, but also techniques from acting, and found that they were highly relevant, particularly in three of the areas we're going to talk about tonight. So one is around dealing with nerves and speaking in pressurized situations, whether it's a formal presentation, speaking to someone who's really senior or impressive or intimidating. Any of those situations can cause us to have nerves. So I'm going to share some techniques in the world of acting that might help with that. The other thing that is helpful as well is around body language and the signals we give off, and that's a really important part of the kind of impression that we make with people. But actors actually have a kind of palette, if you like, of things they can do to improve their body language, but in the world of business, we don't really get taught that, so it's quite a useful thing to pick up. And then also around the voice. So actors spend a long time working on their voices, and that can make a huge difference in terms of engaging your audience, inspiring your audience, and having them listen to us. Does that make sense so far? Is anyone in the wrong library? Good. All right. So I'm going to get you involved a little bit, because if I just talk about technique, everyone goes, "Oh, no." Yes, a little bit involved, just practicing little things as we go through, because the technique should go, "Yeah, that's a good technique," but if you don't actually use it, then it won't really stick with you and you won't make any improvement, as it were. So I'm going to get you a few little things, nothing embarrassing, I promise. But I just want you to do something now, and don't stand up until I've told you what it is. You're going to introduce yourself to two people and just say, "Hello, how are you doing?" Because mingling is good. But I want you to do it once, leaning forward. Not like, "Hello, how are you doing? I'm Martyn, how are you doing?" And I don't want you leaning back too much either. I just want you to lean back a little bit. So once leaning forward, say hello to someone, and then once leaning back to someone. And just notice the difference. So you can all stand up now. Thank you very much. 2 people. All right, once you've done that, you can grab your seats back. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You can grab your seats back now. Thank you, and grab your seat back now. That's a trick, that's an actor's trick. So when I was doing a pantomime, I had to do a thing with a lot of children, not that you like children, but when they were getting unruly, not listening to you, the thing was to speak quite quietly. Anyway, that's just a little trick. So who liked leaning forward? Who thought that worked quite well? Hands up if you thought that was quite fun. Oh, good, lots of people like that. Hands up if you leant back and liked that. No. Brilliant. You're a representative sample. We will talk about why leaning forward is helpful, but can be unhelpful at times. Leaning back, you might say, I don't want to do that, but it does happen from time to time. So we'll be coming back to that and working with it. But before we get into it, I'm going to talk about nerves, because nerves are the thing that, if we get them wrong, can derail us for the whole of the meeting, presentation, whatever it is. And mistake number 1, I'm going to talk about, mistake number 1 is thinking that you've got something wrong with you because you are nervous. That would be a mistake to believe that, I believe. And to illustrate this fact, I'm going to introduce you to my friend here, Nervous Morph. And poor Nervous Morph has got to stand in front of the eminent population of Edinburgh at the Library of Mistakes, and he's not feeling very prepared for this impressive audience, and he's got lots of nervous symptoms going on in his body. I want you to put your hand up, and if you've got a symptom that he might be suffering of nerves. So, yeah, what could be going on with nerves, with Morph in terms of nerves? Yeah. Sweating. Where might he be sweating? Forehead, sweating up there. Yeah, so sweating up there. And you said a red face. Absolutely. Poor Morph. What else?
Like highly open eyes and very sad face.
Yeah, I'm going to say kind of crazy eyes. And a frown. Absolutely. What else? Stuttering. You can shout out. What else?
Messing up words.
Yeah, messing up words. So, say jumble in the mouth. What was that? Fidgeting. Good one, yeah. Fidgeting.
Hands as well, not knowing what to do with hands.
Not knowing what to do with hands, so yes. Big question mark there. Anything else? Yes? What about his mouth? Yes?
He's grimacing.
He's grimacing, yes, absolutely grimacing. And maybe it's dry in there as well. Is that what it could be? Yeah. I put words into your mouth there, sorry, but that's a cool one. So, yeah, grimace and a dry mouth, yeah.
Irritable.
Irritable, you say? Yeah, fair enough. Irritable. Okay, and heart? Heart doing anything? Okay, so the heart is raised there. Poor old Morph. Okay, that's a pretty good set of symptoms. So, I said it was a mistake to say that there's something wrong with Morph. But it might look like there's something wrong with Morph because there's a load of terrible things going on in his body just because he's standing up and speaking to people. Now, we work with a range of people, from people who are super nervous, and there was someone I was talking to today, and he said he's just avoided any public speaking in his career. He's really quite senior, but avoided it and done other things because it's just a total block. So you get people at this end of the spectrum. Other people who are seasoned presenters, but just need a bit of a sort of sprucing up and helping out. And the problem is that people at this end of the spectrum do think that they've just got this kind of curse or this syndrome that when they're communicating, the body goes into meltdown and it all falls to pieces. And what makes it worse is there's loads of people watching them while these terrible things happen to them. So that's why it's often coming out on surveys as one of the biggest fears for people. That's why we believe it's such a big fear. And that's why I always start with morph, because if we can understand what's going on in the body, then we can see it's not something wrong with us. The body's trying to help us. It's just helping us in a slightly off-kilter way. So what do I mean by that? Does anyone know why this is happening, what the sort of physical thing in the body is going on? Adrenaline, absolutely. When adrenaline is produced when you go into what mode? Fight or flight, thank you. Okay, so yes, fight or flight. So the body is rationally perceiving there's a threat. Now, the threat might be that you make a fool of yourself in front of your boss or your most important client, but your body doesn't know that. It's used to physical threats. And it thinks a tiger's coming from the back of the library, coming along to eat me, and it's producing adrenaline, as you say. The heart rate is racing up. And we're really giving a huge boost of energy to try and fight that threat or run away and climb up off the seat to get away from the tiger. So that's what the body's doing. It's trying to be helpful. So the heart rate is going up. The fidgeting is this huge amount of energy that's in the body. And quite often when we're presenting or speaking, we just sit there just reading our notes. And we're not expending any energy. So we become like a pressure cooker. And so we can overflowing with energy. So this fidgeting happens. And then frown is kind of that tension that comes into our body. And we'll talk about tension later. Sweat is the blood going to the big muscle groups on the outside of the body to fight this threat off. So that's why we get hot and red. Stuttering tends to be around the brain. It goes into a really focused mode. It can only think about one thing, which is that threat. If we're not thinking about what we're talking about, the voice tends to get out of kilter with the brain. And that's the same with jumbling. And then there's the dry mouth as well, which is the digestive system shutting down for a little bit. So that's why it's happening. Does that make sense? You can say it's rubbish, Martyn. It doesn't make sense. So that's what's happening. And it is helpful because an actor on stage, Judi Dench calls nerves an actor's fuel. It does give you extra energy. It gives you that focus. You can do some things better than you normally would do with nerves. But if you don't use them correctly or you try and fight them or try and hold them back in, then you get into a difficult place with it. So that's the first thing rationally. What I'd recommend you do is just note down what happens to me when I'm nervous, and it becomes less alarming and less like your body's just freaking out. So that's number one. Okay, practically what can I do about this, Martyn? Let me just give you an easy one. Dry mouth is an actor's trick before you go on stage. So if you get a dry mouth, this is an exercise you can do now. So this is your teeth here, and take your tongue and just rub the back of your tongue along the roof of your mouth, a relaxed tongue with a closed mouth. I should have said that at the beginning, I apologize. Rub your tongue along the roof of your mouth and down the back of your teeth, and you should find your saliva glands are producing a little moisture for you, which is better than drinking gallons of water, which creates other issues in other parts of the body. So that's a little dry mouth trick. So I'll put morph away, because it's a bit alarming. Let me give you some other techniques. 5 things you can do for nerves. And the first one is called There Is No Tiger. And really that's a catch-all for a bunch of psychological techniques you can use to reduce the perceived level of threat. It doesn't really matter whether the threat's big or small, it's how we perceive it. If we get into our head it's a huge issue, then the body gives us that energy, that fight-flight response based on the perceived level of threat. So what can we do to do that? Well, we can practice. And the more practice and more realistic practice you can do, we start to think, actually, it's probably going to go all right. The more often we do it, the level of perceived threat will come down. But also, sometimes people say to us, what about, I think, what's the worst that can happen? And that's worked for some people. We probably say, what's the best that can happen? So I know this, I know my topic, I know it well. These people have come along to have a good evening. They're not coming here to shout at me and see me fail, so I'll probably have quite a receptive audience. So that's quite a good way of doing it. So psychologically reduce the level of perceived threat. That's number one. Number two is a really helpful one for a lot of people, and that is to be physically active. So your body's producing a lot of energy, and I say a lot of people just sit there and read through the notes and just become this sort of nervous shaking thing. Now, if you can, in London, I would get off the tube a couple of stops early before an important meeting, or kind of walk quite quickly and get the oxygen flowing. And you're dealing with your body on the level that it wants you to. It's perceiving a threat, it's giving you some energy, you're physically expending it, and it's working through the system. And you can do that the morning before, you can do it the day before if you're feeling stressed. So kind of work with your body. It takes the edge off that kind of nervous reaction there. And in terms of these, you feel free to take notes, some of you are. If you want a little fact sheet on these notes, at the end, link in with me or drop me an email or something, and I'll send you a quick cheat sheet through of these things, but do feel free to take notes. So that's number two. Number three is this. A simple glass of water. Always good to have a glass of water. One, to keep yourself hydrated. One, to give you a moment to take a little break between sections. Your audience will thank you. But also, and I'm going to demonstrate it so you remember it, let's imagine I forget what I'm talking about at the worst possible time. So I'm going to create a situation where if I forgot what I'm talking about, it would be dreadful. And then I'm going to forget. And you'll know I've forgotten because my hand will go in the air because my brain's gone. So if there's one thing I want you all to take away from this evening, and just one thing, that one thing I want you to all take away from tonight is... Excuse me, a terrible frog in my throat tonight. Check my notes. The one thing I want you to take away from tonight is... Oh, whatever. So clearly that was not an ideal time to forget what I was talking about. It's the worst possible time. But even at that moment, you can always take a moment, have a sip of water, reset yourself, have your notes by a glass of water, because then you can check them. And don't just sort of check them. I'm pretending I'm not checking them. You're checking them because you want to make sure your audience gets all the information you want to share with them. And as long as you start again with confidence, people won't really remember it or notice it. So, again, relating back to acting, if an actor forgets their lines at one point, they just kind of stumble, and then they carry on, and they pick it up with confidence, and it's all fine. You think, oh, something happened. But if you show it, if you sort of lose, I forgot. What was it? Oh, yeah, it was that. Everyone feels awkward. So, yeah, always have a glass of water. So, the next point is to memorize your opening. So, sometimes when we're delivering a presentation, speech, or whatever, we spend a long time thinking about what we're going to talk about and get it as good as we possibly can, but we haven't thought about the first words that are going to come out of our mouth. So we stand in front of our audience and we go, great to see you. Okay, I suppose we better get started then. My name's Martyn, Martyn Barmby. And it's a really clunky, horrible start. So, hello, my name's Martyn Barmby. I run a company called MSB Executive. We specialise in financial communication. Delighted to talk to you tonight, whatever it might be. Straight off, it gets you up and running. People think, okay, this guy sort of knows what he's talking about. I can relax. And then you get into it. But don't memorise anything else. Who uses a script when they're presenting? Go and admit it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, but so the problem with a script, and this is coming from someone who's been an actor for a number of years, the problem with a script is that it sounds like a script a lot of the time. So in this speech, I'm going to talk about three things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is X. The next thing I'm going to talk about is Y. And it doesn't connect up. So try and pull it back. Sort of keywords, bullet points, and the like. But by all means, memorize the beginning, but then get into it. And also it helps with nerves. Curiously, it does help with nerves if you get away from the script, because you have to think about what you're talking about. You have to think about how am I going to express this next point as well as possible, Whereas if you're on a script and just saying the things that you've prepared, your mind might go somewhere else and think about, oh, do they think I'm an idiot? Why is that person looking at me like this? What are my hands doing? It's weird. And so you get distracted and things go wrong with that. Okay, so memorize the opening, but no more. And number 5 on nerves, the final thing on the menu is a breathing exercise. And does anyone use breathing exercises to help them feel calm? Yeah, a few. Well, there's nothing magic about this exercise. If you've got one that works for you, that's great. You don't need to replace it. But I am going to give you my one. I'll give you a bit of theory because we're in a library. So if you possibly can take your pulse, if you can do that, just take 3 slow breaths in and slow breaths out. And notice what happens to your pulse, whether it goes faster, slower, in breath, out breath, what happens? So. You're coming at a very quiet time. Have a seat. Welcome. Okay, so what did we notice? Did our pulse go up? Hands up if your pulse went up. Hands up if your pulse went down. A lot of people have pulse down. Now, 3 choices. Did it go down gradually? Did it go down more on the in-breath or more on the out-breath? So hands up if it just went down gradually and settled down a little bit. A few. Who had it going down on the in-breath? And who had it going down on the out-breath? Brilliant. So the majority of people said on the out-breath. So, yes, there's 2 points to this breathing exercise, and this is the theory behind it. My watch will tell me whether I'm stressed or not, and let's see, how stressed am I? Medium stress, that's okay. So it works on the basis of your resting heartbeat and whether it's higher than normal or lower than normal, fairly obvious stuff. But it also works on heart rate variability, because when we are relaxed, as we breathe in, the heart rate tends to go a bit quicker, and as we breathe out, So that variability is our body in nice balanced sympathetic, parasympathetic systems, if that's the sort of thing you're into. So why am I telling you all this interesting information? Because I'm going to give you a breathing exercise that emphasizes the out-breath. It helps with bringing down the resting heart rate, but it also brings in that variability as well. So I want you to breathe in for 3 seconds, so, and out for 6. Okay, so let's breathe in for 3 seconds altogether, in, and then out for 6. One more time. And out for 6. How do we feel? Do we feel calm? Relaxed? Okay. And that's nerves solved. You never have problems with nerves again. Oh, you will obviously feel nerves. And there's all those techniques there that will help you with it. But also, how you feel about nerves will be so important. So, 1, you know your body's trying to help. And number 2, you know they're a fuel and they will help you perform better in some ways, even though there are some things we need to manage with it. That makes sense? Everyone happy with nerves? You can ask some questions at the end. All right, so let's move on to mistake number 2. And mistake number 2 is around our body language and how we carry ourselves. And it's around the kind of impression that we can make. And quite often, we come into a meeting or a presentation and we bring in whatever we were doing before. So it might just time we get a report and they come, oh, hello, I'm Martyn, and I'm creating all kinds of weird impressions because I brought in what's happening before. So I got you earlier on to sort of stand up, introduce yourselves, lean forward, and quite a few people like that. No one liked leaning back. And yeah, fair enough. I said, hello, I'm going to talk to you about communication skills. You'd think, what an idiot. Why did I waste my time tonight? So we don't advise leaning back as a good way of making a good impression with your audience, but some people do it when they're feeling nervous. They kind of overcompensate. leaning forward. Lots of people liked it. Did anyone not like leaning forward earlier on when we were doing our little intros? When we were doing that, did it feel weird to anyone? Or you all? Yeah, a few nods, yeah. Well, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I would say that we can feel like it depends on height a lot, but actually we tend to make allowances for height when we don't need to quite often. So tall people often sort of pull themselves down, or less tall people sort of do that, which makes their eyes higher to feel like they're kind of getting to a similar level. But actually most of it's done with the eyes. So, just that or that. Is the eyes kind of correct for it all? But we do make adjustments based on those kind of perceptions. It's a really good question. So the leaning forward, the thing with that is, your results are typical in that people tend to quite like it. It's quite friendly, it's quite enthusiastic, you're reaching out to your audience, but some people find it's a bit too much, or it might like, please believe me, please believe I know what I'm talking about, and it may not be the most authoritative. So what I would like to give you is a strong, neutral posture, and that is a good neutral place to be. So I'll get you all to stand up again, if you wouldn't mind. And then I want you to imagine I've got, 50 helium balloons, piece of string, attached to the crown of your head. The neck is long, back is long, and your arms are just by your side, feet roughly hip-width apart, wherever's comfortable, and just sort of do this so you can see each other, so turn in on each other, and let's look at each other, and if someone came into the room now and looked at you, what word might they use to describe you? Confident? Anything else? Stiff, yeah. So the thing with a strong neutral posture, it's a really useful thing to have. But if you just go into it, we tend to look a bit military and a bit stiff and a bit uncomfortable. So I'm going to help you develop a relaxed, strong neutral posture. So take your seats back. And what I want you to do is just sit in your seat, but just don't rest your back against the seat. Just sit a bit forward and get that helium balloon attached to the crown of your head again. Get your feet and ankles and knees roughly at right angles, at ankles, knees, hips. And just close your eyes for a second. And we're just going to check for areas of tension in our body, places where we typically do carry tension. So I'm going to start with the jaw. Just do a little chew. And just see if there's any tension in your jaw. And then we'll go to the neck. And we'll just put the head to one side, and the other side, and see if the neck is stiff and jerky, or whether it's like a nicely oiled joint. Some good creaks. And then we'll go to the shoulders. Let the shoulders just drop down either side of the neck. See if we're holding them up higher than we need to. And we'll just check on the breath, whether the breath's going in through the nose or through the mouth, down deep towards our tummy in long, deep breaths, or whether we're making shorter, shallower breaths. And then open your eyes. Everyone stand up. With a helium balloon attached to the crown of your head again. Look at each other now, and let's see if we look a bit more human. How do we look? I think we look great. Okay, good. You can grab your seats back there. So that's what we call a little body scan. So before going into before this evening, before leaving my hotel room, I just went to strong neutral posture and did a little sort of self-check of where tension was in the body. So you're not carrying in that tension that comes from what you've been doing earlier in that day. Because when we're in there, we want to at least look like there's nowhere in the world we'd rather be than speaking to that person in front of us now. And that strong, neutral, relaxed posture is the way of doing it. Okay, so that's the quick body scan. I went through some areas of tension. Did people have jaw tension? Hands up if you felt your jaw being tense. Yeah, a bit of jaw. Neck tension. Yeah. Everyone's got shoulder tension. I'm not even going to ask. We've all got shoulder tension. So I'm going to give you 3 exercises very quickly that will help with that. So the body scan is the default thing. Just any time you just feel, just reset, healing balloon attached to the crown of the head, and then just check the tension and you let it go. So jaw tension, you can do it sitting down. Take 2 fingers and bite your teeth together, and you'll find some muscles popping out either side of your jaw. And just massage those muscles and do 2 yawns. You should feel kind of pleasantly like a knot you're getting rid of. If there's any cracks, then my insurers will be worried, so watch out. Okay, so that's that. Just look over one shoulder and other. Just do 3 on either side. Okay, good. And then we'll just take the shoulders and just roll the shoulders forward, roll them back, take them up, drop them down, and then. What are the things? So people ask me, what about sitting down? So I rarely stand up and present. The way to find the strong neutral posture when sitting down is a really nice way of doing it, and that is if you sit down without using your hands, so if you sit down using your hands, you will land in a strong neutral posture. If your knees are up to it, why not? Stand up without using your hands and sit down without using your hands and just see where you land. Okay. Great. And just look over your shoulders and you can see, look, people are so upright and attentive. And so that's just a way of finding. I'm not saying you go into a meeting room and go, okay, welcome everyone. So that's a bit much. But it's just finding out where that position is. All right. So that's body language sorted. Any questions on nerves or body language? Happy to take a question at this stage, yeah.
How do you deal with tremor when hands just shake?
Yeah, hands shaking. So that is around the thing I was saying about burning off the physical energy. That's going to help. So just beforehand, being active. But what I would also do, if you get tremors in your hands and fingers, then before speaking, I would do some exaggerated presenting. Hello, I'm Martyn Barmby. I'm talking about these things tonight. And just use that productively and then come back to a more normal level after that. If you still get them, it means your body wants to move. So start putting some of that energy into your presentation. If you can use it productively by moving around, using your hands, using your legs, that'll direct it in a positive way. That make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
Moving around, does that like distract the audience? Or does it take some actual presentation?
Well, I would say that moving around is great if it connects to your message. So if I'm talking to you now, and then I'm going over here, making sure these people don't get left out, and then come back over here to these fine people, and I come back and forth and do that and connect it all up, I think that works. But you want it to have moments of stillness when you're saying something important. Because if you're just always moving, then it is distracting. Where it does become distracting is when the movement is not connected to what you're saying. So you're pacing. So I'm going to talk to you about body language, and then I'm going to talk about the voice. And these are really important areas in terms of making a good impression with our audience. And we kind of get hypnotized by that movement that's not connected. So also, the bigger the room, the more scope there is here. So around here, and it's sort of quite sort of long, thin audience. So a bit of movement down here, I think, helps people at the back feel included. Without forgetting these people. So those are the kind of things that are going on in my head. Does that make sense?
What about if you're standing in front of a presentation as well?
Like you got that? Yeah, like
the presentation behind you, are you still moving?
Yes. Yeah, I would. I absolutely would if it's behind me. And my favourite thing on my pointer, if you have the ability to do it, is the blank button. So most pointers you can blank, and I deliberately didn't use slides tonight because, frankly, we don't need to, and it's quite refreshing not to. But yeah, if you can blank the side, that's quite good. Because, oh yes, this chart's doing this, blank, and then suddenly, boom, people are looking at you. Now, I don't want to be wandering in front of it when people are looking at it, because that's quite annoying that you can't see what you're saying. So yeah, I would go, here's the slide. What you'll see is blah, 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 blah. Trend line is here. Here's the outlier. Turn it off. So what do we take away from that? That's quite nice. You can't always do it. Sometimes people don't let you do it, and that's quite annoying. The question I thought maybe you were asking, so I'll answer it because I started to answer it, was around if there's a lectern. Are you stuck behind that? And it depends. Sometimes you can come out behind the lectern. It's quite nice, and people are, oh, wow, he's got out behind the lectern. He's really comfortable. Actually, when people do that, sometimes they're really nervous, and they're just burning off the nerves. But even if you're behind a lectern, I'd be using some body language and expending some energy productively around that. Yes?
Yeah, I was wondering about body language on a video call. If there's any,
Yeah.
does this all apply to that as well, or would you recommend moving less or more?
Yeah, really, really good question about a video call. So I think about your Zoom window, your Teams window as being, we call it the newsreader pose. So if I'm in a meeting, let me do some terrible drawing. So if that's your window there, there's kind of a grey area around here. We don't want anyone to have any hands going in there. So you don't want your hands flying out of shot. So you want to keep them within this area here. Then you've got some terrible drawing, as promised. I'd like to get the hands into shot if I can, if I'm in a meeting, if I'm presenting, so you can see the hands doing stuff. So just for completeness, I'm going to just put wonky face on it. So your hands are seen there doing stuff. Otherwise, you often get just the face thing. And if you think about that in real life, you'd be kind of like really in someone's face. So it's a bit weird. And also the laptop up the nose is the least favourite. And it kind of looks like you're looking down on someone. So, yeah, I'd go strong neutral. Get your camera maybe a bit further away so you can get your hands into play, but don't have them flying around and doing crazy stuff. If it's just a one-to-one meeting, then being a bit closer and not having your hands there, that's totally fine. But if you're talking to someone for, say, longer than 5-10 minutes, it's quite hard for people to pay attention online. So by doing that, by giving them a bit more visual stimulus, it helps. That make sense? All right, there'll be time for more questions later on. I'm going to move on to my final mistake, and that's around the voice. And the mistake around the voice that people make is warming up their voice while they're presenting. So we hear it a lot where people start presenting. They come into a room like this. Hello, my name's Martyn. I'm going to talk to you tonight about financial communication. And then gradually, as I get more into it, my voice starts to warm up, and then by the end, I've really got quite a powerful voice, but I've started off with this kind of weak, slightly underconfident voice that people think, this guy's not really sure what he's talking about. And he's talking about financial communication as well. So we want to come in and make a really good impression that our voice is warmed up and ready from the start. So I've got a little exercise for you that you will love. I think you'll love. Okay, it's a standing up one, sorry. So what I want you to do with this one is put your hands in front of you, and as you breathe in, take your hands apart. So breathe in with a deep breath, and breathe out through the mouth, and bring your hands together. So it's like you're squeezing air out of an imaginary beach ball in front of you. To make it into a beach ball, your mouth is a little valve where you blow the air in or squeeze the air out of it. So we're going to do that, but to make that valve happen, on the out breath, you're going to make an F sound, like a F. So, like that. So let's take a good breath. Keep on going if you can. Keep on going. Keep on going. If you've got more breath, keep on going. Keep on going. Squeeze every last bit of breath out. Keep on going. Some people have exceptional breath control. They're probably professional singers, disguised as something else. So well done, whoever did it. Wow. I'm not going to look and embarrass anyone, but that is impressive. Oh, I'm still going. A round of applause. So what you may have felt, or hopefully felt, is as you ran out of breath, you were having to work really hard to get that last bit of breath out. And these muscles here started to kick in. Some people talk about the tipping up feeling. Now, these are the muscles that actors use when they're on stage. So if I'm in the National Theatre in London and I've got 1,000 seats up here and I need to be heard at the back and I'm speaking to someone, I can't just shout at them over here because it'll make a terrible noise like that. But we should do this. So that's not quite what I'm suggesting you do in meetings, but if you can get a bit of that voice kicking in, that muscle driving it from the diaphragm, rather than from up here, it's going to be a much more powerful, richer, confident sound. So that's why we're doing this exercise. We're going to do it one more time. Very relaxing sound, actually. I quite like it. ASMR or something. Good. Good. Okay, let's make it less relaxing. I'm going to make you just one time, because it is helpful, we're going to make a real sound. So we're going to make an R sound. It's not a singing exercise. You go whatever. We're just going to go but a loud sound. And if you're all doing it, it's not embarrassing. So you all, promise you it's not embarrassing. So you take good breath. No. Oh, perfect. Keep it going. Keep it going. That's it. Keep it going. Come on. Great. Keep it going as long as you can. Excellent. Really good. It was a slightly horror movie, but it was very good. So do you feel your muscles doing something in that? So yeah, what I'd say is before you, if you've got a really important presentation, meeting, where you want to speak, and be warmed up from the start, having your voice ready is really important. So I do that sound, or if you can't do it because you're in a place where you can't, just lock yourself in a loo cubicle. Everyone thinks it's a pipe. I've done it before, it's true. And just do that. And it just means that the voice is coming from the right place. You make a really good impression from the start. All right, so that's the voice. I'm going to get you to just, while you're standing up, to the person next to you, it might be a three, but in pairs, talk about a holiday you're going on in the strong neutral posture and using these diaphragm muscles. So I'm going to go on holiday either this summer or sometime, but try and do that. So I'll just give you 2 minutes on that. 30 more seconds, 30 more seconds. Okay, thank you very much. You can grab your seats back. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. That's perfect. All right, great. Thank you very much. Well done. I thought your voices were sounding exceptional. So hopefully you notice some difference in your voice, either in terms of power, in terms of the way it moved around, the pitch. Helps you start in a really authoritative and powerful way, hopefully. So we've had a whistle-stop tour through these 3 mistakes that we can make. 1, around thinking there's something wrong with us because we feel nervous. We know some techniques to deal with that. 2, carrying our stresses from before our presentation into the room. You've got some techniques to body scan, get you into a really calm, authoritative place. And also around the voice, coming in fully warmed up and ready to impress people with your first few words. So those are all fixed now. You can now ask me any questions that you've not already had a chance to ask me. So yeah, any questions on any aspects of financial communication, I'll answer now. Yes, thank you.
Quite often when people communicate on Teams, it can be to an audience that's not visible because you've got cameras off, or worse of all, unresponsive. But if you're presenting in a way where you can't see the facial reactions to people, that often, to me at least, spurs some anxiety. Whereas if you're presenting to an open room, you can see that people are listening or are reacting in some way to at least what you said.
Yeah.
Have you got any tips for being able to engage where it's essentially a presentation to the ether?
Yeah.
And not just sort of repeating oneself when you start getting a bit of a negative spiral, but
Yeah.
either break that pattern or, not get into that situation in the first place?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question, and I'll say 3 things that are kind of all related, and you can pick out which ones you like with it. One is, if there are some cameras on and some cameras off, then I'll always move the window so that someone's face is under the camera. So I can minimize the Teams window or whatever, and plonk the person that I particularly want to talk to just by their camera so I can talk to them, friendly face, and it looks like I'm making good eye contact with the camera. So that's number 1 ideal thing I can do. If there are no cameras on and you're literally just speaking into a void, then we have 2 things we do with that. One we do is we put a picture of someone behind the camera, and my colleague Stephen has a picture of Audrey Hepburn behind his camera, and he speaks to her, because that's what he does. But you can also do a thing where we get a little post-it note, and we rip out a bit for the camera, we draw 2 eyes on, and we just put the post-it note with a little hole where the camera is, and we talk for those eyes. It gives us a place to target them. So those are little hacks, if you like, that we use. But I would say it touches on another really important point about audience feedback. And this is true of in-person and online, in that we're really sensitive to how our audience is looking at us. And it's part of that fight, flight, focused thing. So if someone's glaring at us, we kind of think, what have I done? Why do you think I'm an idiot? Have I said something terrible? Have I offended that person? And what we say is with an in-person audience, say it's an in-person audience of 10 people. One person is probably not feeling great for whatever reason, didn't sleep so well or whatever. One person might be having a pretty rough time at work and being stressed about that. One person might be having tough times at home. So if you've got 7 people smiling at you and looking reasonably attentive, you're doing as well as you can do. But we tend to pick on the least happy face. And most of the time, it's nothing to do with us and what we're doing. So if you see an unhappy face in the audience, and this is what I've been telling myself all night, I've not seen any unhappy face in the audience. So if you do, they have a right to be unhappy for whatever reason and choose someone else to look at and engage with. Does that make sense? Great. Thank you. Yeah. One question there and then over there. So yes.
One of the most terrifying sort of public speaking things is if someone asks you, say, a birthday party or something, say, could you say a few words?
Yeah.
And of course, you've not had all the planning and you've not had to do the exercises and your voice isn't ready.
Yeah.
Any tips on how to sort of, I guess, have a universal prepping mechanism for just getting up on your feet and saying a few words about something that
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, so yeah, I'll just say a few words. You're not ready and you hadn't got anything. I mean, my first tip is that I always assume I'm going to have to say something at some point at any event, and then go, oh, I hadn't thought about it at all, and then pull something out of the bag. So that's the best tip. But the second best tip is there are some structures that we use that you can quickly throw your thoughts together. A really nice one is past, present, future. So I use that all the time. If someone says, say someone's leaving party and you say, okay, Martyn, can you say that? And I'm like, I didn't know it. I'll think, well, let's think, where were we at when David joined us? We were in this, the company was in a terrible state. There was only 2 of us stuck in this cold room. And look at us today, all around here, gathered in this amazing building with all these things around us. And the great feeling of warmth, camaraderie, and learning that comes from it. And the future's going to be without David. Sorry, David. It's not really. The future. if you come in late, that's it. So the future's going to be with David. No, without this person, we're going to miss them terribly, but they're going to have fantastic, whatever. And that's just perfect. And someone goes, oh, wow, that's amazing. Because it's just, we love like these rules of 3 as well. So past, present, future's one of them. Someone says, what do you think about this topic? And I'm not really sure. Pros, cons, conclusions, I'll kind of come up with quite quickly. Sell, sort of thing. Well, actually, there are some really strong reasons for going ahead with this project. These are X, Y, and Z. But on the other hand, there could be some challenges, A, B, and C. So overall, I think we need to do more work on this, but it looks like it could work. And go, oh, wow, I really thought it out. But just because you put it into 3 buckets. So there's a couple of things. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
Kind of following up on the digital kind of public speaking. With like, right now there is a lot of interviews done by just pre-recorded video.
Yeah.
Would you say the methods of putting the smile over the camera would help with that and the picture? Because it feels like you are talking to a wall.
Yeah.
And with I would agree, there's no reaction, so you cannot change any like body language. How would you approach it so we can?
Yeah, I mean, I literally do.
The interview style, but at the same time, it's pre-recorded. It's like a video recording.
Yeah. So is that where the person's asking questions, or you're just speaking for a minute on a topic yourself?
You just have a question, and you have half a minute to prepare and 2 minutes to answer.
Yeah.
How
So.
Yeah. Would you use the smile in the picture?
Actually, on that one, what I would do is I would have words. I would have a series of words, like prompts for myself on that. And I would be trying to not learn a script, as I said earlier. But I'd say, on this topic, 3 things. Off we go on our 3 things again. 3 things are important. One thing is, and it might say around, I don't know, tariffs. Tariffs are going to be a huge factor, obviously, for big, sorry to mention that. Blah, 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 we're going to talk about that. Let's talk about something more interesting. Let's talk about summer holidays. So, whatever, and you pick out those things. And so you want it to be kind of alive and real and not stilted, but just enough you've got some structure there. So I would do that. I literally pop that behind my camera, just that, not auto cue and all that kind of stuff, but just some words that I can look at, and it also gives me somewhere to target as well. And I think is that helpful? That's what I would do.
What I try to do is just put words on the screen so I can bullet points.
Yeah, keep them small, get them up near the camera, otherwise people see the eyes going like that. Yeah. But yeah, good. All right, good question. Yes, 1 and then 2, so yes.
Any tips for slowing down, speaking?
Brilliant question, tips for slowing down. So it's really hard to slow down, actually, when your body's in that fight-flight mode and you're racing along and everything's, the heart's going, the breathing's quicker. So actually, if you slow down, you can end up being, it's like your body's a car with the accelerator pressed, and you're trying to press the brake, and you kind of fight yourself, and that's not great. So what we do is we put more pauses in. Because you can actually speak quite quickly, but as long as you use plenty of pauses, it's probably fine for your audience. So you then might start to slow down later on, but you put those pauses in to allow people to stay with you while you're speaking. So putting pauses in, now how do you put pauses in is the next question. Well, we use an exercise called walking the presentation. And so when you walk, you talk. So I'm going to talk to you about financial communication. Stop. Pause. 3 common mistakes that people make. First mistake is around nerves and thinking that they're some kind of disease. Okay, so by walking it out, it stops you from doing 3 things. The first thing is this, second thing is that, and you physically stop, pause, and take a breath. And then you can insert those pauses, and then over time you'll pull back on your pace afterwards. Much more effective than kind of fighting with yourself to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Great, and yeah.
It was actually related to that one, but like if you're given 15 minutes to talk about a topic, how do you calibrate that? Well, I want to get everything in, so it's fast. I'm scared of missing my conclusions, so I try to slow things down. But is it just practicing and being confident in what you're doing?
I mean, you can do what 95% of people in financial services do, which is squeeze 30 minutes of material into 15 minutes and speak really quickly. It happens all the time. Your meetings get squeezed and people kind of rattle through it because you've got to get the content in that time. So it's around, editing. And it is practice, really, so there's no magic answer. But what I would say is that time is very different when you're standing here. And for some people, suddenly a presentation that they thought was taking 10 minutes takes 17 minutes, or it can take 4 minutes. And people are like, well, what's going on there? Time disconnects and feels very weird. So practicing in a realistic environment, knowing what happens to you, whether you're a person who will slow down or speed up, and just kind of calibrate with that. But most importantly, edit that material rather than compress it into that space. I would always prioritize a little bit as well. So you have your headlines, your detail, and you can get people to ask questions later if you want to give any more detail on that. Okay. How are we doing for time? I think we've got time for one more question.
Keep going.
You can go. That's all right. Let's go. I'm happy to carry on. Yeah, so, okay.
I was going to say, I've been watching how you use your hands now, using different phrases and sentences.
Yes.
What are the best ways to deploy it, like, any sort of like tricks you use, like, for certain types of sentences, certain phrases, or do you just go with like how you feel? What's the strategy?
Okay, hand strategy, good question. So the crucial thing about hand strategy, as we're calling it, as I've never called it that before, but I like it, is having a good neutral place for your hands. And that's the starting point for everything. So the most neutral place is this. And actually, that's uncomfortable for a lot of people. But if you stand up, you come on stage, and you say, welcome. It actually looks quite powerful that you can do that, but I wouldn't say it's a go-to place for most people. So we want our hands in a place, usually somewhere around belly button height, quite good. Up here, doesn't look very confident. Down here, doesn't look very confident. So somewhere in between. Now, I'm going to give you a few options. You can tell me whether you like them or not. So let's start with this one. Some nods, some shakes. Yeah, so split the room on this one. This is known as the steeple. Steeple was used extensively in the years 2000s. Anyone who went on a presentation skills training course will be learning the steeple. The problem with the steeple is that politicians all learned it and everyone did it. So no one trusts you when you do. No, not no one trusts you. That's too much. But it can elicit negative responses. So being a more relaxed steeple is all right. Another one you can do is this one, just hand loosely. What do you think? Yeah. That's quite a good one. The good thing with that is it's very easy to gesture, so you don't want to get locked in, clasping your hands in a tense way. So that's good. My favourite one is back of the hand resting loosely against the palm of the other one. It's quite open, quite friendly. I quite like that. But I'm not saying, you can do a loose interlock, things like that. You find what works for you. It's not a rule, but apart from the only rules I will give you is that it shouldn't be tense. We want it to be nice and relaxed. There's a gentle interlock over there. And that it's sort of the right sort of height. You don't want it too high, too low. That kind of makes sense. Was there? Yeah.
You appear almost to eliminate
Right.
speaking. Do you have any advice in that regard?
Great question. So filler sounds, filler words. I'm going to give you a little bit of theory on this because it's a favourite topic of mine. So thank you. So filler sounds, people think they're just useless, that they're a verbal tick that serves no purpose, but they do serve a purpose in some conversations. So if the three of us were talking to each other and saying, oh yeah, how's the day? What did you do at the weekend? I did this. Oh yeah, I saw that sporting event. I did this. Or I saw Chelsea Flower Show. And then I stopped talking. It gets awkward quite quickly. But if I'm wanting to keep and someone else will start talking, but if I want to keep my place in the conversation, I saw that thing, that flower show in Chelsea, and they were doing this, and I saw the celebrities there. And is a way of saying, don't interrupt, I've got this, and it's actually a perfectly valid bit of conversation in small groups. The problem is that when you're presenting, it's sending the wrong signals because it's sort of saying, don't interrupt me, I'm still speaking, and of course you're still speaking. So don't get too angry with yourself for making an It's a natural part of conversation. It's not a disease again. But we do want to reduce it, and how do we do it? We go back to our exercise around pace, walking the presentation, and we squeeze out the ums with pauses, because an is really a noisy pause. So if you keep what most people do, and yeah, I know someone's boss got really annoyed about this, one of the teams I work with, every time he made this they just click the pen until and it's click, click, click. Stop doing it now. That's not a great way of doing it. It's just but if you actually push in those pauses, so you finish your point, and we often talk about closing the box. So you make your point, and you close the box. Pause. Open the next box. Let's talk about the next thing. And then we'll close the box. Pause. Usually it's when we're not closing the box. So we make the point, and that's a bit of a point, and then there's another point over there, actually. And while I'm talking about it, now it's quite another point. Close the box. Close the box. Put the pause in, elbow things. Yeah, great.
Can I just ask, sometimes we get people saying, we're going to give a speech in the introduction, we're going to explore this point later.
Yeah.
And your heart sinks. What do you think of that as a method?
I would say, it's a really interesting point. It depends to me whether the audience cares about that point, really. So if you've researched your audience and said, whatever your audience, I'm going to talk about perhaps the most exciting and unusual mistake in financial history tonight. I'm going to take us on a journey to get there, but that's what I'm going to talk about, and that's what people want to hear about. People might be kind of drawn in by it. But if it's something like, oh, good, I don't want to listen to that. So I think it's about knowing your audience, I would say.
What I'm really saying is that sometimes people say, I shall cover that point later.
Yeah.
And it suggests a very extended
Yes.
lecture.
Yeah.
Yes. It's better to cover each point without.
Yeah, I think, well, it depends. I would say that we often talk about a map, like at the beginning of a presentation. There's a few things that I will typically do. I'll give it a context to the evening, talk about me and what the purpose of the event is, what the objectives are. And I will give a bit of a map of, look, we're going to cover this, we're going to cover this, and we're going to get there, and roughly around this sort of timing. So I'm happy to orient people, but yeah, you don't want to make it sound like a kind of endurance event or an ultra-marathon presentation. That would be pretty brutal. So I can see your point. I think if it's something that's hooking people in, they go, yeah, I want to know that, and it's done in a punchy way, that's fine. But if it's like, I'm going to be here all night, that would be worrying. That makes sense. Thank you. Good question. I think we are a little over time. I'll be hanging around if you've got any questions. As I say, if you've got any, if you want a sort of cheat sheet of techniques, then approach me. We can link in or give me your email or something. I'll share that with you. But thank you so much. It's a beautiful Edinburgh evening, and you shared it here, so that's great.
Can I just say, I did come in. Oh, God. Thank you very much, Lauren. I came in at the end there. So But I knew it was going to be superb. I often think maybe I'm going to experiment and try and do the negative thing. So I'm going to speak standing still and then move. And I'll do all the things and stand awkwardly. But I loved what I saw was absolutely wonderful, particularly that 3-point history thing. So what we say that before Martyn came, we were bereft. We didn't know anything about this at all. It was just a terrible, terrible world. He's come here. In the present, he has enlightened us with this amazing speech. And in the future, we are all going to go out now and be the most effective communicators that the world has ever seen. So please join me in thanking Martyn for being wonderful. I think there's more drinks in the back. Anyway, let's go and have some drinks. Thanks.
Sorry for picking on you when you came. I should turn around.